This is an individual who will be missed by very, very few people in the region. Remember, Iran under Khamenei has been very, very assertive in involving itself in states throughout the region, from Lebanon to Syria to Yemen to Bahrain and others. It's really tried to use its military apparatus, like for example the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, to insert itself into the domestic political arenas of these states to try and practice what academics call state capture, basically exerting a larger than life disproportionate amount of influence in that state's domestic and foreign and security policy, so it basically does what you want. So that's why Khamenei is not going to be missed by many people in this region. The question is, where do we go from here? We know from Libya that you can't just bomb your way to a stable an orderly regime change or a transition, even if there are actors waiting in the wings, which we might have seen in Libya, but we can't really see yet in Iran. Chaos still often follows. There is zero appetite in the US for boots on the ground, of course. So it looks like this is going to be a limited campaign in terms of being restricted to air power. The problem is that Trump has set maximalist objectives. He said what we are going for is the fall of the regime in Iran. But how do you engineer that? It doesn't collapse. The regime does not collapse by assassinating people like Khamenei. Yes, it's a psychological setback, it's a military and decision-making setback, but Iran has procedures in place. It's very much a decentralized network of decision makers. So simply killing some of those nodes, yes, it causes some disruption, but it's not by itself going to bring down the regime. There has to be a longer term strategy to turn those military victories into a political vision. And that political vision here, which Trump has set, is a very, very broad and ambitious one, bringing down the entire Iranian regime. What we've seen from Iran is that it feels like its back is against the wall. This is a real existential moment for Iran. And we can see that simply by how Iran is fighting this war. It's a complete and really profound transformation in Iran's warfighting and military doctrine. In the past, Iran worked along the lines of what it calls strategic patience. It knows it doesn't have the military power like the US and Israel have. It can't do the damage that they can do. So in any round of hostilities, it's often trying to play the long game. A slow, steady, long war that basically degrades its adversaries' will or willingness to fight, that does so much economic damage and damages societal resilience that they will eventually then agree to a ceasefire. This is a complete 180 from Iran. We're seeing a new strategy of basically trying to cause chaos, to destabilize the region, to bring in states and attack states that are not involved, and not only not involved, but have actually been lobbying against a US attack on Iran. States like the UAE, like Qatar, like Bahrain. Iran is now attacking them, burning any bridges it had with these countries to try and cause so much chaos, so much instability, that they will then pressure the Americans to agree to a ceasefire, that the economic and cultural and societal damage will be so great that the Gulf states, who are key US allies, decide that they can't go on anymore. This is an extremely high-risk gamble. There is no sign of it happening or manifesting anytime soon. In fact, the exact opposite, where many of these Gulf states who've argued in favour of keeping a channel open to Iran are now turning very, very hostile to the Iranian regime. There is a degree of that, this feeling that the Americans might not actually have a plan and their whole strategy is just to degrade and destroy as many regime assets as possible, that the people rise up and overthrow the regime. The problem here is that we've already seen attempts by the Iranian public to rise up and overthrow the regime. That ended in a brutal and bloody crackdown that has killed thousands of unarmed Iranians. That was primarily led by hardline elements like the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. So you can destroy so many buildings, you can take out leaders, but there are still thousands of members of the Iranian security forces who are willing to do the same again. And the people of Iran know that. And adding on to that, they're far less likely to come out of their houses and demonstrate against the regime when Iran is still being bombed. It's frankly purely pragmatically unsafe to do so. People are sheltering in place, not just in Iran, but throughout the entire Gulf. So this idea that when the smoke clears, suddenly there'll be a insurmountable mass of the Iranian people that rise up and overthrow the regime is frankly very, very naive. And I, for one, hope that the Trump administration has a better plan than this in its back pocket. The IRGC have been very much calling the shots in Iran for years now. And the more isolated Iran gets, the stronger the IRGC gets itself. This is not just a small group of special forces or individuals that are very good at clandestine or grey zone warfare. This is a whole state within a state. The IRGC now has basically a parallel army to the Iranian army, a parallel bureaucracy to the Iranian bureaucracy. Many people affiliated to the IRGC, civilians, not people who wear uniforms, have made a lot of money through going round the sanctions against the Iranian regime. So actually, ironically, the IRGC have been lobbying hard against a deal because they're the ones making all the money and creating a domestic power base through sanctions busting, the economy of sanctions busting. So the IRGC and its supporters remain a critical mass in Tehran, and it doesn't matter how many buildings you destroy, there is still enough of these people with small arms at home or wherever they're sheltering and an undying loyalty to the regime. So even if you kill people like Khamenei, this does not mean that we're going to see moderates or doves rise to power in Iran. In fact, we might even get people who are more radical. It is the IRGC that's currently fighting this war. So it's them who have decided to go all out in attacking not just non-involved states like the UAE, for example, but also states with robust ties to Iran who are hosting mediation, like Oman, like Qatar. So this shows you just how hawkish Iranian foreign and security policy might become despite the loss of Ayatollah Khamenei. There's two questions here in terms of how long this lasts. The first is, will Iran's strategy work? Will its strategy of going all out, of targeting primarily non-involved states like the GCC countries, will that mean they then come to press the Americans for a ceasefire? So far, I see no signs of that whatsoever. In fact, there seems to be a lot of public and elite support in these Gulf countries for hitting back at Iran. So if they were war skeptical or war phobic a couple of days ago, they're now the ones understanding that unfortunately Iran has backed them into a corner and they have no choice but to respond. So that's one variable here. The other variable is what exactly the US and Israel can hit in Iran. How much damage can they actually do? They're going to start running out of targets. And not only that, but the missile defenses in these Gulf countries and in Israel, they're going to start running out of missiles to shoot down these incoming missiles as well. It's much more expensive to intercept these missiles than it is to fire them. So Iran does have an advantage there. The long and short of it is we just don't know how long this will last. At the moment, it shows no signs of abating simply because the Trump administration has set maximum goals. The overthrow of the Iranian regime. They're not talking about a better deal. They're not talking about a ceasefire. Iran feels like it faces an existential threat, existential peril. So it's willing to do many, many things it wasn't willing to do before because they were considered too high risk. I don't see a clear linear path to the fall of the Iranian regime based on the balance of power at the moment. That doesn't mean the Iranian regime will not fall. That it's definitely weaker than it's ever been before. The fact that it's doing the things it's doing shows that it feels like it's a rabbit in the headlights moment. It is fight or flight for the Iranian regime. The question is, can we get from this stage, you know, all these strikes against Iran, the death of the supreme leader, can we get from there to the fall of the regime? I don't see any clear linear path for that to happen through airstrikes alone. There has to be a diversification in US and Israeli strategy in order to bring about not just the fall of the regime, but its replacement with someone better, someone who's going to bring stability rather than more chaos. The last thing the GCC states or anyone else wants is the fall of the Iranian regime and its replacement with power vacuums, chaos and civil war. There needs to be a day after plan, someone waiting in the wings to take over and bring order to chaos. We do not see anything of that sort yet.